If you are watching this video, A, you are tired of listening to the Caro-Kann. B, you are curious as to what the Breyer variation is. Or C, you are just bored. Anyway, I admire your interest to learn. Hey guys, welcome to IQ Chess. This is the third episode of my beginner's E4 repertoire, and in today's video, we will be studying a unique sideline against the Caro-Kann known as the Breyer variation. Quickly, before getting into the video, I made a PPT explaining the basic principles of this opening. It's just 3 slides and it has all the information that you'll need to start playing. I have also provided the lines and the usual ideas for this opening. I will drop a link for this below in the description. You can download it and review it. Let's get back to the video. So, the Breyer variation is characterized by these moves: E4, C6, D3, D5 and knight to D2. This is officially the Breyer variation. So, the first part of the video, we look at the theory behind this opening, and later on, I will show you some tricks and also share my thoughts on this opening. Let's get into it. As you can already see, this is breaking a lot of opening principles. We are blocking in our light square bishop. We are also blocking in our dark square bishop. We are putting our knight on a passive square rather than putting in the center. However, this variation is not quite played at the higher levels, and also this variation helps you stay off of the main lines that the Caro players are well versed with. From here on out, there are two main moves for black: E5 or E6. E5 is the most popular one, and first we look at that. E5. At this point, every single move of white makes sense. I'm saying that because till now whatever we have done is just idiotic. Sort of. So, this pawn is just moved. We will play knight g to f3, attacking the pawn. Black generally responds with bishop to d6, defending the pawn. Now, from here on, the play can take two different paths. White can either play an immediate d4, which I like to call as the open variation. It's not named that way, but I like to call it as the open variation. Or play in a more closed and setup based way that I like to call as the Breyer system, with g3, kingside fianchetto, c3. In today's video, we'll only look at the closed variation. I personally don't like the open a lot because tactics are all over the place and the chance of you blundering early on is very high. So, because we cannot really develop our bishop to any of these 5 diagonal, we'll push g3, preparing to fianchetto. Black usually plays knight to f6, we fianchetto, black castles, white castles, black activates the rook with rook e8, we plays c3 after the castling. We are trying to control that d4 square. We don't want black to successfully push on. Had black done it earlier, this pawn would have become a massive weakness for us. So for them, so we can attack it and then just neutralize it. But now because black is already set up, the pawn is well defended, we don't want black to push forward and just suffocate us. So as soon as the rook comes defending the pawn, we push c3. Usually black plays a pin or knight to d7. So knight b d7. We will defend our pawn with rook e1. b6 is usually played to develop this bishop because this knight is blocking the way. And here we will push d4. This is the whole point of the opening. From here on out, it's really interesting because there is this massive clump of pawn. There's a lot of tension in the center and the chance of both of you blundering is high. But considering the fact that we as white are studying this position extensively, if you play the Breyer variation against every single Caro-Kann game, you will face this position like around 50 to 100 times. But your opponent might have only seen this a couple of times. So you are better prepared for such positions. So I think you have a better advantage and better chance of winning. From here on, the major ideas are to clarify in the center. Soon the clarification has to occur. This won't stay like this for very long. The whole objective of playing d4 is to clarify in the center immediately. We will try to reroute the knight f1 to activate this bishop or play on the queen side depending on how black responds. So that is basically it for this variation with e5. Let's move back a bit. After knight to d2, black can also play e6 in a kind of sort of like passive way. This is usually how the Caro-Kann is played, but this is just a bit weird because we usually have a pawn on d4. From here on, the good thing about the Breyer is you still play the same damn thing. We still go knight gf3. Knight f6 is usually played. g3, black usually develops the knight to e7, the bishop to e7, because if you see, these squares are just dumb. If black goes to b4, they get into c3 and help us push for d4. If they come here, that's just a clean fork. So black usually plays bishop e7. We fianchetto, and the critical move c5. This might happen now or after black castles. Either way, the moment you see c5, you must play c3. We cannot let black have the d4 square. We should never let them do that. So we will play c3 as soon as black pushes for c5. This move makes sense in this variation because in the previous variation, the knight developed through this square. But considering the fact that we are set up in this way and the pawn is on e6 and not on e5, in the previous variation, pushing c5 would mean undermining this pawn and have this 3 pawn here, at which point you can just chop it all off. But now black has more flexibility and they'll play this c5 followed by knight to c6 developing. We usually castle, they'll castle, knight to c6 is played, and then rook to e1. And the idea is still the same. We are trying to play for this move, or the other choice is to clarify immediately with the trade in the center, and then we'll reroute the knight. This move is critical move because this knight is not doing much right now. We would rather want this knight rerouted somewhere else and join the kingside attack. Also, this move helps develop this bishop clearing its way. So, just to sum up, this is the common idea behind the Breyer variation. That's all for the theory. We won't be looking at any more theory because, in my opinion, being way too theoretical is not the right way to go for a beginner, because you should rather understand the basic principles and ideas behind the opening. So now, let's have a chat. First of all, why the Breyer variation? You might ask, why play this variation? This looks idiotic. I would rather play something like the advanced Caro-Kann, which is a lot more popular. The problem being the advanced variation and also the other variations with the protect Caro-Kann, or if fantasy is a unique case, that is a different thing. But other variations, this pawn on d4 is a massive target. For example, with the classical variation or with this is one of the most trappiest and disgusting variations of Caro-Kann ever. I personally play this with black all the time. If you have watched my stream, you'll know this is my favorite opening for black. I always play this, and since the rise of Levi Rosman aka Gotham Chess, this has become a lot popular. And from here on, I'll show you something. This is just statistics. You can input my username in opening tree and check it for yourself. I'm not lying to you. The most common continuation at this point is basically bad for white. I usually face c3, knight here, I go for a pin. This is how it looks. Almost 75% to 80% of my games look like this, and this is just basically a French defense but with a better bishop. You see the French defense, we immediately play e6 in the start, so this bishop is kind of unhappy, but this is the position I reach the most. So that just shows a lot of people don't really know how to play against the Caro-Kann that well. And let me be clear, I am a 1700 rated player. I am not a lower rated player. Even in lower ratings, this is the most common position that you'll reach. So that is the primary reason, the primary motive of me recommending this Breyer variation, because genuinely, if you face this, the whole idea of pushing for c5, pressuring is out of the window because there isn't a pawn on d4, so you are not attacking anything. In this variation, there is this kind of a clump in the center to target. But in this variation, there isn't. There is no pawn on e5, there is no pawn on d4 for targeting. But we still are principled. You see, rather than playing d5 and taking the center immediately, we try to set up in a proper way, and once after we complete our development and take our king to the castle and just castle our king and set up properly, then and only then we look forward to doing this break. So overall, this is a really good opening in my opinion. And also a few things that you should know. One of the best things about this opening that I didn't show you yet is that If black plays something else, like knight to f6, let's say, we didn't discuss this. But still, this is the same thing. You are going to play this exact thing all the time, almost. Not all the time, but almost all the time. So that saves you a lot of time from studying deep theory. Another nice trick, if you stuck around for this long, another nice trick that I will tell you. At this point, there is one thing that you can do. If black is a higher rated player and you are looking forward to drawing the game. If you are looking forward to drawing the game, you can play this move, knight to f3. This kind of looks idiotic because you are going for this trade. Early queen trade, you can't castle anymore. But engine has proven that this transformation of the position is beneficial to white. This is similar to the Rui Lopez Berlin defense that is often seen at the highest of levels. The Berlin defense, if you know the Berlin endgame, is where black voluntarily does that. You have this kind of a line. Black will take you. There is d4 moving back. You will damage the structure. Knight has to depart from the square and go for this queen trade. But turns out black is fine with this. Black is happy getting into the variation if they're looking for a draw. So that is the whole point. You can do this if you feel like it's necessary. If your opponent is a very strong player, like over the board, if you're playing someone who is really, really strong, you can go into this line also. I won't recommend it always because this kills all the fun. This just becomes a dry and just unfun kind of a variation. But nevertheless, this is also an option for you. Now, if you have stuck around till the end of the video, I have something to offer. I made a PPT explaining the basic ideas, just 3 slides, and I'll be sharing the link to the Google Drive down below in the description. Check it out, and if you have any doubts or if you want a follow-up video to this or some practice games of mine, be sure to drop in the comments. I'll definitely read them.